All right, we got a big show and they coming in. Let me give you about 30 more seconds and we're gonna get started. Our special guest will be on. He's agreed to give us some time, and you know it's gonna be a good time. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Rocky Miller podcast, and I'm Rocky Miller. This is a very special series that I'm doing, and what I'm doing with this series is I'm bringing in what I would call HBCU sports media insiders, sports media personalities, podcasters, people who specialize in covering HBCU sports. Though this particular guest is not restricted to HBCU sports, he's hosted a drive time radio show that has been in a NFL market, in an NBA market. So he's covered far more than just HBCU sports. And I'll go ahead and get it started with no further ado than my man, Reggie Flood.
What's going on, Rocky, man? Good to have you. Good to be here, man. I'm so used to being in the lead. I was about to say good to have you, but it's good to be here, brother. Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Man, this is a conversation that I've been looking forward to for a long time, Flood. As you well know, we've been trying to hook up for a long time, and I think we've been Facebook friends for actually over 10 years. So
yes,
way before my interest in HBCU sports started, we were friends on Facebook. And I just a quick story. I believe, if I recall, my sister gave me your name during a time where my sons were being recruited in football, and I wanted to get in contact with one of the coaches on staff. And I think come to find out during that time they were transitioning in coaching during that time. I think it was 2012, 2013 time frame, and they were having a transition. But anyway, Coach Flood, man, I'm so glad to have you on the show, man. And you're a person who, as I endeavored to cover HBCU sports, you're somebody that inspired me and really is the first person that on a social media platform that I heard talk about HBCU sports as well as among other things. And so that's why this interview was so important for me to bring you on, not only to introduce my audience to you, but also introduce you that you may be able to inspire some people the same way you inspire me, the way you've dropped knowledge on me and all of your other, the people that follow you in doing your lives. Notice you hadn't done a live in a while, but I imagine it's because of, this is kind of the dead period in HBCU sports.
So. Well, it's not really because of that. It's kind of been some things that have gone on, man. I'll tell you, Rock, I really appreciate that, man. And I've always had an open door policy to anybody who wanted to learn, who wanted to get into business. I've always tried to platform new people. But for me, I had to take a break, man. Last year was really, really hard on me. I lost almost all of my uncles, including my cousin. They all passed away. Pretty much all of the males in my family, the older males in my family. My cousin, who's one of my best friends, my uncle, who was one of my best friends. We were all raised like brothers, very close in age. My uncle literally was my sports mentor. He literally taught me how to throw a football and a baseball. And they passed away all within a 5-month period, man. And I was trying to fight through it, trying to get through it. And after a while, I just realized it was like I didn't have a voice. I tried to talk through it, tried to push through it, and I just couldn't, man. So I wasn't feeling sports. I wasn't even watching sports. I just had to take a break. And that's the honest to goodness truth. If I could just be open and honest, that's the honest to goodness truth. Why you haven't seen me do many lives or things like that, man, because I really kind of been in mourning, and I had to come through that. And I've just now in the last couple of months or so have been able to kind of push through and feel like I want to talk about sports again, feel like I want to be involved. I kind of did some things last year with me and Coach Mel. We'll be back this fall, rather. We'll be back with Inside the Game, but I've kind of pushed through and did that but now I'm feeling better. I'm back. I know what my people will want me to do. So I'm out there doing, I'm ready to get back in the game. This is really the first interview I've had in a long time, man.
Well, hey man, first off, condolences to you and your family, man.
Appreciate it.
It can be tough, man. I've lost some uncles and some people that were very close to me, and I know how tough that can be. So I can imagine losing people that you literally brought you into sports, introduced you to sports, and how you probably couldn't think about sports without thinking about them.
Exactly. It was just it was literally in a 5-month period. I lost 4 uncles and my cousin. So it was just a lot. And so, you don't realize it when you're going through it. You're just going through it. But then after a while, it hits you. And if you don't take time off, you'll crash and burn. And I definitely didn't want to crash and burn. So I took the time off, man, to kind of get right and get myself together.
Well, yeah, I guess things like that make us really realize how small sports is really in the grand scheme of things. It gets a lot of attention, a lot of hoopla, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really small when you get to talking about loved ones and family and something. And even we sometimes lose perspective
Yes.
about what sports really are, which is an entertainment outlet. It's really not as serious as we take it sometimes.
Yeah.
But with all that being said, Flood, I wanted to, like I say, bring you on and talk about your journey. I can tell just a couple things what I know, Flood, and just by talking to you. You're a Southernite.
Yes.
Right?
Very much so.
and it seems like you've never been anything other than a Southernite from very, very young. So can you talk to us about your relationship with Southern and how you became a Southernite?
Well, those uncles and aunts and all of those, and my mom primarily, my mom worked at Southern for 43 years. I was basically raised on the campus. My dad is a former Southern University football player, former NFL player, AFL and NFL player.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Joe Williams, tailback. Southern has just been in. I was literally conceived on Southern's campus, literally. So Southern is in my blood. It always has been. The majority of my family went to Southern, and I've just always bled blue and gold, man. So even times when I moved away, the things I would come back for would be Southern football games.
Yeah. With that being said, were you an athlete yourself at Southern, or did you play any sports?
Tell you something, man. I played in high school, played high school football, basketball, walked on under the legendary Marino Chasm at Southern, and I was a very good walk-on, not a very good player.
Hey.
I did all the things walk-ons need to do.
I understand. I spent a semester at a junior college playing football and realized I didn't love it as much as I thought I did either. So I share your understanding. And that's one reason why I respect the student athletes that go out there and play so much. I understand what they sacrifice and what they give up. And I know that the majority of the people that sit and watch and cheer and criticize can't cut the mustard if they were given the opportunity to do what those young men are doing. Yeah. So that's what
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I have the utmost respect for our student athletes and the coaches and the families that sacrifice that, man, to have their young people out there, for those young people out there playing, and for the coaches and their family who put hours and hours into trying to get this right.
So you went to Southern, and then how did you transition into covering Southern as a sports media analyst, or how did that happen? Can you?
Ironically, it wasn't Southern that I first covered. Ironically, I wasn't going into media at all. I was working in corporate America, and I used to. I was really bored. I didn't like my job. I'll tell that now. And I just wanted to do something else. But I used to call into a sports talk show almost on a daily basis. And one day, the guy called me. The guy was like, "Hey, man, you have good takes. You got a pretty good voice. You ever thought about getting into radio?" Of course, I thought about getting in the radio. I had done some things, but not a lot. And so he was like, look, I said, yeah, sure, I'd be interested. And then he called me a couple of days later and was like, look, man, I got a producer's job open. I can train you on what you need to do if you're interested in the job. And I was like, okay, well, how much does it pay? And then he told me how much it paid. I was like, oh, I don't know about that, man. It was more than half the money, less than half the money I was making. But at the time, it was just me. I didn't have I didn't have my son. I wasn't married or anything. So I was like, okay, well, I took the chance and took the job. And literally, the first show that I produced, I started producing his show, which was a 5-day-a-week afternoon drive show. But the first show that I actually produced was the Jaguar Journal.
Okay.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was the Jaguar with then host Carlos Brown. And Coach Robert Bennett and Coach Otis Washington were hosting the show at that time. And I would produce the show. So that was really my first time really being around Southern in terms of them covering it and me producing it. I moved away. Still hadn't covered Southern. I moved away, went and did some other things in radio, grew in radio, got into management, got into sales, wanted to grow in radio. And the first school that I actually really covered professionally was Mississippi State. So
Okay.
my first assignment was Mississippi State and Alabama, because if you know anything about Starkville and Tuscaloosa, they're only 80 miles apart. They're a straight shot right up the road. So I literally recovered both of those schools, and that was my first beat. And my second beat left there, and I moved to Miami. My second beat was the University of Miami basketball and Miami Dolphins football.
Oh man. Oh man.
But eventually I ventured back. I came back I always followed Southern, of course. I always came back to games and things like that. So I ventured back when I made my way back to Baton Rouge, and I was working. I was kind of out of radio, still doing some things. I did some television. I had done some television in Baton Rouge before I left. And I did that when they had something called Cox Sports, which was when the regional sports channels were all starting. Cox, Fox, all of them. I did a couple of Southern basketball games for them. And I did men's and women's basketball. I did some basketball for them, and that was my first time doing play-by-play or being an analyst. But then I moved away, like I said, and eventually I moved back to Baton Rouge. Wasn't in radio. I was just I was working back in corporate, and got a call one day that I heard that Carlos Brown, he left the Jaguar Journal. Got a call from the guy who was the EP at the Jaguar Journal. It was like, hey, man, I need somebody to come in and host the show. Are you available? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'm available. I hadn't been on a microphone in 6 years.
Wow.
And just one Wednesday, they turned the mic on, and there I was. And I was just like, wow, here I am back. And, it took me a while to get my chops back, but I ended up hosting that show. I want to say I did 10 years, 11 years of this show.
Wow.
Yeah, I did 11 years of the
You had a good
Jaguar
run.
Journal. Had a good run. The Jaguar Journal is still on. It's the longest continuous running sports show in Louisiana. So, yeah, I had a good run. Perry White does it now. But, I had a good run on the Journal. And that was really my first time really being professionally covering Southern sports and not just being a guy on the sideline talking trash.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You go back and cover your alma mater, and this is one thing I respect you for, your Facebook lives. You would always be honest and upfront about what's going on in Southern, and you would also give your opinion about what you thought was going on in Southern. Have you had struggles with maintaining relationships by being that honest? And have an opinion about those things that are happening on campus?
For some people, yeah, but for the people who really matter, no. Some people, they're sensitive. They feel like, you're going at their job or, You're trying to take food out off their table, which never is the case for me. But when you're in a business like coaching, when you're running a university, you're going to be open for public criticism. I'm open for public criticism. I get criticism all the time. I get threats. I used to get threats. It has been a while, so we'll keep it that way. But, all kinds of things. But yeah, some people, I'll put it like this, Rocky. The people who love me at Southern and care about me, who know they don't have a problem with me, for people who don't really know me, who just hear me through the Facebook Lives, some of them feel a certain kind of way or they feel a way about it. But I'll tell you this, it's a love. I love Southern and Southern has loved me, but it's also a little hate. I kind of have never gotten the pat on the back from I've been honored by a lot of things, Sports Illustrated, you having me here. I've been honored in a lot of places. Let's just say Southern has not been on the honor train for me. Let's just say Southern, they've done a lot of things to people from the outside, but let's just say Southern, the people at Southern don't really, the people that, and some of the powers that be aren't as receptive as they could be, but it's all love, and I understand that.
One of the things that people have said all the time about it's hardest to win at home, and that's kind of what you're speaking to, is that it's hardest to win at home. Not that you haven't had success in whatever, but I guess what they're also saying is the appreciation that other people from the outside looking in, right? They appreciate you and are willing to show that appreciation a lot more than the people you're around. And I guess it's almost sometimes they can take for granted the talent and what you offer them because they've always had it and they've never had to do without it. One thing I can say, Flood, you're one of the most talented guys I've seen do the talk radio in this space. Not only can you talk eloquently about sports, but you also can tie other aspects of life into it, whether it be politics, and you've went as far as to talk about things related to men's health and all those other things that kind of come together. Is that something that comes natural to you, or you feel that it's your responsibility? Why do you tie so many of those things into one another when you're talking sports?
All of the above, because one of the first things I realized when I started getting in position for people to hear my voice was that there aren't a lot of us talking. There weren't a lot of us talking at the time. So I kind of had to be a voice that I couldn't just shut up and dribble. I had to say things about social issues. I had to say things about men's health. I had to say things that could be beneficial to our community and talk about those things because I had the platform that not many people who look like me had. So I definitely wanted to deal with those issues. And sometimes it's gotten me in some hot water, but I felt like it was necessary to do those things. And I look now and I see a lot of the sports people combining the politics and social issues. And I was like, man, that's my IP right there. That's my intellectual property, but it is what it is, man. I love to see it. I love to see the platforms grow and see people use those platforms and use their voices for positive change.
Yeah, back over, I'm gonna say I caught on to you probably a couple years before the Deion era of HBCU sports. And back then you were just talking about what was going on campus and the politics around it, things that the challenges Southern had. And then when you got on with talking about Deion and what impact he would have, you didn't mince words, right, about it. And you're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong. I initially got the impression that you didn't think very much of the hire. You also thought it was it posed an affront to the profession that he was entering to give him a head coaching job with literally just high school experience.
Yeah, I felt like it was an insult to coaches who have been in the business for a while, who were working hard. We've always been told, you work hard, keep your head down, hone your craft, and you'll get the benefits of it. And in particular, I thought, and I still think as a responsibility as HBCUs, we have a responsibility to to do that, to bring our people up. And I felt like this was it was kind of a skip the line situation. Now I understand it. It's Deion Sanders. I understood why it was happening. I understood why Jackson State was making a move. It wasn't a personal affront to Deion, although I didn't agree with a lot of the things he did. And a lot of the things that I had disagreements with turned out to be true, but there was good and bad and everything. There were a lot of good things that Deion did in terms of the attention to HBCU football. But I just kind of felt like this was a situation where we were, in the long term, we weren't looking at the big picture, because Deion Sanders is just that. He's Deion Sanders. It's not another Deion Sanders. As much as people have tried to emulate it and copy it, it's only one Deion Sanders. And I was hoping, it's kind of proving me out that other people were going to try to do this over and over again. And I just felt like this was something that couldn't be duplicated. Jackson State caught lightning in a bottle, and it was great for Jackson State.
Hey, and as Emmett points out, Coach Cole is somewhere smiling right now. Yeah, and you're the first person. At the time, I had met Coach Cole. I'll just tell this quick story. You were telling a story about Pete Richardson and some assistant coaches, right, that had an altercation. You probably don't even remember telling this story. Do you remember telling this story on Facebook Live?
I think I may, but go ahead. I think I know what story this is.
And you were telling me, and I'll just say this. You were telling me about two coaches who had got into an altercation on campus, and you mentioned both the coaches' name. Now, one of the coaches was Coach Cole, and the other coach, I can't remember his name. He had a funny name, so I don't.
Probably Mark Orlando.
Yeah. So obviously you remember, and you told this story. Now, I had no idea this was the guy who would later become my co-host on HBCU Coach's Corner. But I remember the story, right? Yes. And later, Coach Cole being very candid about, the things that he's been involved in, things that he's done in, winning national championship at Southern and all those kind of things. He later tells me the same story, and I'm like, you're the coach that Flood was talking about?
Yeah, a lot of people, man, I've been around for so long and seen so many things and know so many people. A lot of people didn't believe the stories that I would tell. And then they would be like, somebody would give them confirmation, or they would meet the people and they would be like, wow, that really is true. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't make it up for you. I wouldn't make the story up. Yeah. So Coach Cole confirmed it for you.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, when he told me the story, I remember you telling the story on one of your lives. Now, I don't remember the context for which you told the story about, but you were just telling, it had to be something around coaching or something like that. But you told the story, and I was like, man. Anyway, but yeah, that's just interesting. I just thought I'd bring that up, that you're the first person that really told the story about Coach Cole before I even met Coach Cole, who is now my co-host and a great friend, and really a brother, man. He's a swell guy, an amazing guy, has a wealth of knowledge in the sport. I enjoy doing the show with him and Mr. Campbell every Tuesday, man. And so he's just an almanac of HBCU football, and he knows everybody that's anybody in coaching.
Yes. Coach Cole has been around, and I've been around enough that where I saw Johnny Cole play quarterback at Texas Southern. So, I've been around. I'm dating myself, but that's how long I've been around the SWAC. As a child and growing up, I've seen everything. Stood on the sideline in high school and watched Jerry World Rice catch 3 touchdowns and throw 2 touchdowns. I've seen, that was in the 80s and the 90s to see Aeneas Williams. Mel Blunt is literally like family to me. Like, guys like that play with my dad and, got a chance to be around them and hang out. And they've always treated me like I was a nephew. Then to see, be on the sideline watching Jerry Rice and Willie Totten light it up. Aeneas Williams and Taurus Smalls and Jimmy Smith and guys like that play. Doug Williams is a mentor and a friend of mine. Doug has been my mentor since I was 14, because I was literally only the second African-American, second Black quarterback to quarterback at a white high school in Baton Rouge. So Doug was a friend and a mentor, and this was during Doug's Super Bowl run. This was as he was at Washington and through his Super Bowl run. So I've been blessed in some of the things. I've had opportunities to if people from Alcorn will know what I'm talking about, to be in the mail room on a Sunday with the legendary Dave Whitney and Rat McGowan and Marino Chasm. Anybody from Alcorn who knows what happens on Sundays in the mail room at Alcorn, they'll be able to tell you, to watch Coach Pete Richardson, to sit under and become friends with the legendary Marino Chasm, to be able to go to Grambling and as a student, and some of my best friends were playing ball up there, and Coach Eddie Robinson telling me, I'm waiting on them to finish, and he tells me, "Oh, son, don't worry about it. Come on in here. Ain't nothing you can see in here that's gonna make Southern beat us anyway. Come on and sit down," and invited me in that team meeting, during the spring. So I've been blessed, man. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Hey, as my favorite Southernite chimed in, and she says two of her favorite sports, but this is my sister Cynthia, and she's been a Southernite a long time. I'll just say that you wouldn't know by looking at her.
I think I actually hosted your sister's birthday party one time. Yes, your sister was a big fan of Ray Lewis.
Yeah,
and I hosted her I hosted her birthday party one time. Yes, I had a lot of fun. Yes.
I went to my nephew's wedding and had a lot of fun too. Almost too much fun, but no, they the Rhodeses know how to throw a party and have a good time. You definitely can say that. But man, I wanted to kind of have, and I know you gave me a time slot, but I wanted to talk to you about this because I think this is very important. This is an important aspect of HBCU sports media. There are a lot of voices in HBCU sports media, kind of splintered, kind of, all over the place.
Yes.
Are there any ideas out there to kind of consolidate those voices where we can go to one place and not necessarily hear them, but kind of where the fan base can go somewhere and know that they can maybe get Coach Cole and Reggie Flood and know when their content is being posted? Like, these are things that I want to talk about with guys who have a history of sport. Has HBCU media always been as splintered as it seems to be on the internet?
Let me tell you, there was no HBCU media until maybe and I have to say this, Ken Richard, who is HBCU Sport, who's HBCUsports.com. He is HBCU Sports. Ken Richard was really the first person to do a website. He and Eric, I can't remember Eric's name, but Anadon, they were really the first HBCU websites, and that people could come on and discuss issues and things like that. And then, of course, Facebook, everybody jumped to Facebook. But in terms of the audio and video media, that didn't exist for a long time. And I have to give some credit to it was me, myself. It was, a couple of people out in Houston who were doing things. Carlos Brown, who was my mentor, Greg Burchell, who started the Jaguar Journal, Carlos Brown, who continued, who was a friend and mentor to me. There were some people there were a couple of people out in Houston, Ralph Cooper, people who were doing so, but there weren't a lot of people in the market to do HBCU sports. And then I'll have to give credit, around the time that Coach Sanders came about, a lot of people jumped into the market. I locked on before Deion Sanders came. Myself in the Locked On network, which people might know for Locked On Saints or Locked On whatever it is, you hear their name all over. But myself and Locked On partnered for a while to do Locked On HBCU Sports, which is still on. Somebody else is hosting it, but I started that show. And I thought that would be a catalyst to be able to get people in. But then the market kind of exploded with Deion Sanders and bringing the attention to the HBCU world. A lot of people have tried to capitalize on that. I would love for us to have a place to centralize and be able to really listen, find, different points of views and help grow this HBCU media space. Because I think what's happened is, and not saying that everybody has to be a trained journalist, but what we have, in my opinion, and I'm sure I'm going to step on some toes with this, we have a lot of fandom in HBCU sports. Like it's hard to just find that true sports talk or that true professionalism. And part of that comes with people trying to meet the algorithm. A part of that comes with kind of the homerism that goes with it. And that's part of it. There's a place for that. Nothing wrong with that. But I think one thing that we have to adhere to, and I hope that more people look at this regardless of who you root for or but the truth. Because as African Americans, and in particular those who are talking about HBCUs, we have to stop dealing in rumor and innuendo and deal with the truth, because the truth matters in journalism. For regardless of whatever I've done, the truth is mattered. And journalism, I know a lot of people don't think of themselves as journalists, or they think of themselves as entertainers. But if you're going to follow a story and report on a story, then you have to follow up, get sources, get multiple sources, and present the facts, not just your opinion. It's okay to present your opinion, but present the facts that your opinion is based on first. And I think those are some of the kinks that we have to work out if we want to move forward. But I definitely would love to see a platform where, we could find multiple voices on HBCU sports without having to go all over the place to find it.
Yeah, I think I was wondering if during the heyday of HBCU sports, were there some syndicated show that went in all the markets that talked about HBCU sports? Because what's amazing to me is when I look at the history of HBCU sports and I see the crowds that were at Jackson State Alcorn games, or Mississippi Valley Jackson State games, or whatever, the huge crowds. I'm wondering how was this interest driven, and how did the people get the word about how big the game was and how much the game meant?
Well, at that time, you have to look at how our community functioned. I mean, we function with word through the churches. We function with word through people. We had that connection, people from down south to up north. So you had those connections. And to talk about syndicated, one of the first, or the first, probably the only national syndicated Black show was the Eddie Robinson show. The Eddie Robinson show, hosted by Clarence Buggs, was a national coaches show. Okay. Coach Rob basically looked at what other coaches were doing across the country, and he said, why couldn't he do it? And he got he was the only African American coach at a HBCU. He was a trailblazer. In that Coach Rob was at the right person at the right time, doing the right thing, because HBCU and America was just in the early 60s, mid 60s, was transferring from radio to television, in particular national networks. Coach Rob was able to do that, take advantage of that in the 70s. He had a national show. Other than Coach Rob, I think it's right now there are a couple of shows that are considered national, and that would be the Box to Row is one of them with Donald, and that would probably be the closest thing to a national show that we have. I would like to, of course, I would like to be on a platform that we could do something nationally. I know that, but one of the things with HBCUs, Rocky, and I think you've discovered this, is that a lot of times HBCUs didn't take sports seriously, and they've been kind of behind the eight ball trying to catch up using sports as a platform. Certain HBCUs use it as a platform to propel, if I can get the words out, propel their university, but not all of them. A lot of our leaders and the presidents of our universities didn't take HBCU sports, and didn't take sports serious. So now we're playing catch up. So they didn't develop the media connections or even the media networks that our schools should have. We're still trying to develop that. Some schools still haven't caught up with it. But I think as we do that, and as people like you and I and Perry White, Scotty, Dr. Cavill, my man George over at SWAC and the Fool, I think they do a really great show over there. As you see more of these voices, I think we'll start to see it even get bigger. I think one of the biggest things, right, is how we monetize this. Because that's one of the issues.
And so one of the things that I'll say, and I'll be perfectly transparent, in the whole 3 years I've been on YouTube, I made about $500 the whole 3 years. So hey, anybody think I'm getting rich? I'm not doing this for money, and my wife can vouch for it. I'm doing this.
I'm sure she will.
I'm doing this because, one, I love sports and I love Black people, and this brings two of my favorite things together. And you got to understand, as a 50-year-old man, to discover HBCU sports in this particular climate, in this day and age, it's a beautiful thing. Now, I know you guys have been part of it your entire lives, and you guys probably often take it for granted. But in my lifetime, to have 30, 40, even 15,000 Black people all in one space having a good time, and there's no threat of danger, harm, or anything like that, or being harassed for that matter. Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. And that's one of the things that HBCU sports has brought to my life, and I absolutely love it, Flood. Like I said, I told you I wasn't gonna keep you long, man, and I try to be a man of my word. But where can they find you, man? Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Well, I'll tell you, I agree with what you're saying, Rock, about the camaraderie of HBCU sports. What I want to see is, for me, as being somebody who is I guess I'm an elder statesman in this thing, as reluctant as I am to claim that, I still can ball with you boys. I just want y'all to know that. I just, I might not move as fast, but when it comes to this, well, I won't even say that, because when it comes to this talking thing, it's not too many people who could out-talk me. So, I think that's why I don't get on a lot of platforms, Rock. I don't get invited to do a lot of these young cat shows because they can't. I don't know if they want to get with the old man. The old man's crossover is still deadly. I can still talk that game. So I don't get invited to a lot of shows, but I want to see these young guys prosper, grow, and grow their platforms, and do the right things. Do the right things, because at the end of the day, we are the voices of HBCU sports. We are the thing. We are the ones who people come to us. There are a lot of people, they won't tell you, but there are a lot of people outside of HBCU sports who tune in to these shows to find out information. So when you're putting information out there, be careful what you put out. Make sure you put out the truth. And I know, we all like to have fun. We all like to kid each other. We all like to joke on each other. But we have to stop. Well, I can't say because I'm sounding like somebody's daddy. But
go ahead, please.
I would hope that we stop reveling in each other's failures or shortcomings, because when we get on here, when we get on social media and we do that, people take those things and they use it against us. I've literally seen gone to places where say, well, look what they're saying about themselves. Look what they are saying about the SWAC. Look what they're saying about the MEAC. That's their own people. And I know we take it as a joke. We take it as it being, we just, Jones, we just having fun with each other. But other people look at us from the outside and they don't take it that way, and they use it against us. They use it against us in recruiting students and recruiting athletes and raising fundraising. I know advertisers that look at things on social media and decide that they're not going to spend money, not just at our universities, but even on our shows that we do, because we spend a lot of time going at each other and tearing each other down. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, or but I'm just saying, just be aware when you post something in certain groups, or when you post it on social media, just be aware that it might be funny, at the moment, but the long-term effects of it. So, that would be the one thing that I would say. Coach Mel and I, Tramel Howard, another young, talented guy, man. I try to keep myself surrounded with young, talented guys. It keeps me young, keeps me growing. We're going to be back in the end of July, beginning of August with Inside the Game, where we'll talk about Southern University athletics, SWAC, HBCU, and we'll talk about professional sports. That's something I've always wanted to do, to combine HBCU with sports with professional sports. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to preview Monday night football games, recap those Sunday games. Coach Mel and I will break it down so they'll be able to join us back again 6 to 7 on Monday night. So that'll be a thing. I hope to be on many more platforms. I'm open. I appreciate you, Rock, for inviting me on. Like I said, a lot of people don't invite me on, but hey, hit my inbox is open. Flood will talk to you.
Hey, Flood, one of the things that, and like I say, I wanted to be honest, but I wanted to talk about last thing. Can you just explain to me why coaches in HBCU realm, and maybe it's not just the HBCU realm, are hypersensitive to criticism to the point to where they...
Let me tell you something, brother. That is a coaching thing. Some of the most sensitive person I know is Nick Saban, brother. Trust me, when I covered Mississippi State and Alabama, those coaches, the higher they up on the food chain, the more sensitive they are. And I know it does seem like HBCUs, but I tell you, in my experience, NFL coaches, hypersensitive. Big time college coaches, hypersensitive. So it really is a trickle down effect. And I think it is just the nature of the beast in terms of how that job. Nick Saban told me one time, and it wasn't just me, it was a group of us, we having dinner, and I happened to be one of the guys there. And one of the guys asked Coach Saban, had he made any friends since he's been in Baton Rouge? And he says, well, I already have friends, and I don't really worry about making friends. They say, well, why is that, Coach? He said, if I win, I'll have plenty of friends. If I lose, I won't be here long enough for it to matter. So
yeah,
that's the kind of headspace coaches have to operate in.
Man, hey, look at here, Flood. Like, I could go all day, man. But I want to appreciate you. And next time we could talk about what's going on at Southern, because that matters to me in this regard. What I believe Southern should be as a blue blood program, I'm trying to figure out why FAMU and Jackson State in this prime era has had success, and Southern, which to me, now I'm not a Southern fan, but I'm just talking about what I experienced on this past homecoming, and what I know about their fan base, relationship to how much my sister and her friends and the people in the community love Southern. I want you to explain at some point why Southern are struggling to hire coaches, to find a coach that fits, to rally around a program. Like, I just don't get it. It seems like y'all have everything to compete at a high level, especially on at the HBCU level. And for whatever reason, and if you want to answer, you can. But
I'll put it like this: you have to look at what's happened. Really look at the big picture. Jackson State threw a Hail Mary and it connected. That raised the bar. So everybody, if you look at it at FAMU, when FAMU hired Willie, his last name is Willie Simmons. When they hired Willie Simmons, that was the homeboy coming home. Eric Dooley was really supposed to be Southern's Willie Simmons. When you think about it, Eric Dooley was supposed to be Southern's Willie Simmons. So I just don't think for Southern is keen upon throwing the Hail Mary. Like, nobody wants to be the guy who throws the Hail Mary. because they don't know what's on the other side. Because it's a political space. You know, you have a lot of people moving around. It's definitely a political space.
Let me push back on you a little bit, Flood. But y'all have all the pieces that work regardless of who the coach is. Y'all have the rich. Let me just tell you, the rich recruiting grounds.
Yes.
The fan support.
Yes.
Right. The dedicated alumni.
Yes.
Right. From what I saw, more than adequate facilities. You know,
well, we can work. We need some work, but when you compare
adequate,
to other
I said
schools,
adequate. You know,
adequate. Yeah, we could use some work on the facilities, but it's not the worst. It could be better, but it's not the worst. I agree with you on all of those things, right? I just feel I think for Southern though, Southern had like this conversation has gone on about Southern since A.W. Mumford died. Like Doug, like for real, like the reason we got Coach.
He might have died before I was born, and I was born in '70.
He died in 1961. So I'm just I'm just giving you an idea of how long this conversation to give you an idea. Like even with Coach Pete Richardson. Coach Pete Richardson was not the first choice to when that job came open at that time period. They literally wanted to hire Archie Gunslinger Cooley. And Dr. Spikes, who was the president at that time, said no and made Coach Chasm go back to the sideline for another year. They wanted to hire Houston Markham. I have to go back before that. They had announced that they were hiring Houston Markham, who was then the coach at Alabama State, who had gone. They were going to bring in Houston Markham. He used it to get a raise. Funny story. When Southern was going to pay him $53,000, which at that time was incredible amount on that level. He used it to get a raise to I think it was $55,000 or $58,000. It was something like that. And so he backed out at the last minute and didn't show up for the press conference to announce him as the head coach. So Coach Chasm ended up having to go back to the sideline and coach as an interim for another year. Then he wanted to hire Archie Cooley, who he had brought in as his offensive coordinator, and Dr. Spike said no. And that's how we ended up with Pete Richardson, but we haven't had that kind of leadership to have that kind of vision. Pete Richardson was a coach that we had beaten in Shreveport the year before, 47-14, when he was at Winston-Salem. So when they hired him, of course, the street committee, as they called it, were like, "Oh man, we just hired this guy that we just beat to death in Shreveport, and you know, we're not going to win with this guy. We'll be lucky if we go 6-5." And I can remember being in the barbershop and the late, great Sean Wallace, who was a player at the time, came in the barbershop and he said, they were asking Sean. Sean was always a straightforward guy. They were asking Sean, Sean, how y'all going to do this? How y'all going to be, you know, y'all going to win any games? And Sean said, we're going to go undefeated. At the most, we'll lose 2 games. And I'll be damned if they didn't go 10-1. And I think Coach Rich got everybody on the bandwagon. Game 1, played Northwestern State in the Superdome. Southern came in there and just manhandled Northwestern State. I think the final score was 35-17. And at that time, it was even a bigger deal then for HBCU, even though we were Division I on the same level, to beat a predominantly white school. And to manhandle them and dominate them the way that Southern did in that game, that immediately activated the Jaguar pride. Everybody got on the Coach Rich bandwagon, and he ended up going 11-1, 10-1 his first season. And, you know, that was the legend. But we just haven't had that kind of visionary thinking and visionary hiring going on at Southern, because I'm going to tell you now, and I'm going to tie this all in before I let you go. I mentioned Coach Mumford. Mm-hmm. Coach Mumford, when Coach Mumford died, literally Southern hired every one of his assistants as the head coach until the last one was in 1976 at Charlie Bates.
Is that Is that the dark period you always refer to? Or I forget what
the
you call.
dark period went on all the way to 1993 when we hired Coach Richardson. But
Wow.
just to give you an idea, there was a certain period after Coach, from 61 when Coach Mumford died, all the way through to 1976. We hired every coach that coached under Coach Mumford, all of his assistants. We then went away from that. We brought in a young man from California who didn't last long. We brought in a high school coach from St. Augustine, Coach Otis Washington. We had Marino Chasm in the interim between that time. We brought in another high school coach, and this is where I talk about the politics of Southern. A lot of these coaches were hired. They were great guys, good guys, and I'm hardly going to get in trouble for saying this, but they were hired because of their political connections.
Wow.
And so, Coach Rich, we finally got it right. We brought in Stump Mitchell. I just saw somebody say Stump Mitchell was hired because of nepotism. That's not why Stump was hired. Stump was very qualified to be a head coach. Don't ever get it twisted. The man coached for years in the NFL. He was an assistant head coach in the NFL. I will say this: Stump was misled by a former AD. He was misled and put in a situation that was untenable for him to win. He came in and literally inherited a team where the vast majority of the team was ineligible to play. So he had to, and this was, this is pre-portal, this is pre-everything. So he literally had to recruit a new team. He cut some guys.
He was put up some poor circumstances, in other words, what you're saying.
Terrible circumstances.
It's been proven by the production of his players on the college level, at the NFL level, that he's a top-notch coach.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. It was proven by 2013 when the championship that Coach Dawson Odoms won. He won it with almost all of Coach Mitchell's recruits. That was really Coach Mitchell's team. That was with his recruits.
Hey, Flood, I'm gonna do something here because I think it's appropriate based on what you've done here tonight for us, man. You're a professional in this space, and I know your time is money. So I'm gonna put Reginald Flood 28. Is that good?
The Cash App?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's the right Cash App, man. Hey, I appreciate it, brother.
So I'm gonna put that up, and I'm gonna start it off. And so, because I think it's important that we bless the people who show us appreciation in here.
Man, I appreciate that, brother. I think that's the right one, Reginald Flood. Yeah.
You got your I hope I put it in there right. Let me see. I got it. Hold on, let me do this. So because I want to show it on screen to show that see, can y'all see that? I hope y'all can. That's a little something to Uncle Flood right there. That's a little something to Uncle Flood, and cause I appreciate it.
Oh man, I appreciate you.
Like I say, this wasn't planned, but I told you 30 minutes, and you giving us almost an hour, brother. And I didn't want to. I'm a man of my word, but we're having such a good time, man, and I just want to compensate you for your time, brother.
I appreciate that, brother. And like I said, I don't do this for the money. It's good to have it. It's good to get it. I can always use it. But I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your platform, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness and what you do, and how you do it, man. So keep up the good work. Whenever you need me, I'm available. Just, give me a ring, reach out to me. You got my number and stuff, so reach out to me. For all the other people out there, hey, don't be scared to have Flood on you, man. I work with you.
Man, hey, let me tell y'all. I literally hit him up yesterday. I told him the days I had available, and he said, "Let's do it." And it was just that simple. So there's no reason, and I'll even throw Coach Cole in the mix too, because he liked to do something with other people in the space. Because at the end of the day, what I've understand by coming in this space, just like I know in corporate America, relationships matter. Yeah. And I came in this space with a relationship with my sister, who is a Southernite, and that's my connection to the HBCUs. But that wasn't enough for me to have any voice in this space. Y'all would hurry up and let me know. Shut up. You not a HBCU guy. We don't care about what you got to say. And I'm so glad I didn't listen, and I'm so glad I kept at it, because again, I don't think this space is solely driven by your college affiliation. I think this is so much deeper of a connection than just where you graduated from college or what school you attended. And at the end of the day, I'm just so happy to be a part of this, man, that it just means a lot that you Flood will come on and have this conversation with me and the audience we built over here on HBCU Coaches Corner. You coming on here is a great idea. Coach Cole, my wife, first off, let me thank my wife, because my wife connected me and Coach Cole. Yeah, she know I had a big mouth with a lot of opinions. Coach Cole was her customer. She hooked us up, and ever since the first time I had, and here's the cool thing, right? This is what I think, Flood. You guys have so much knowledge of with HBCUs, HBCU sports, HBCU politics, HBCU history. Y'all haven't had adequate enough outlets to share all the knowledge that y'all have. That, it used to amaze me, Flood, to watch you go for 3 hours on your lives, and it seemed like it was 30 minutes. And I'm like, how does this guy have all? And now I understand that y'all haven't had the spaces to have these long format conversations about the things that y'all love. And that's why you can either get on the phone and talk about it ad nauseum, or get on live and talk about it, because a lot of these conversations that you talk about, they haven't been had in public or in a public audience. And so
and I can just talk anyway, right? I won't lie to you. I can talk. I can, I do 3 hours on the NFL, 3 hours on the SEC, 3 hours on 3 hours on Tiddlywinks if I have to. I mean, you see me do an afternoon drive show for 3 hours.
Absolutely.
Every night. Having to talk about the Saints and the Pelicans and all kind of stuff.
God bless you.
Yeah, so I can talk now. I've never been found not guilty of being able to talk. So I can talk.
Oh yeah, man. Hey, yeah, but not everybody can talk for 3 hours and make sense the whole 3 hours. So that's
well, some people would argue that I don't make a lot of sense sometimes. So go figure.
But they may disagree, but you're a very articulate black man. I'll say that.
Appreciate it. I think.
No. What I'm saying is, you know how they give us those backhanded compliments.
Yeah. He's so articulate.
But yeah, man.
Hey, I know, brother. I covered Mississippi State.
You covered Mississippi State?
Yeah, I covered Mississippi State, brother, and Alabama. I know.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised. Hey, did they let you in the press box? Did you have a separate section?
Hey, I almost. But look, this was during the Sly Croom era, so I had.
Oh, okay.
So that probably had a lot to do with me being there too, because Sly Croom was there. Coach, that was a good guy, really great guy. Love Coach Croom. But
Edwin says, gift of, I guess it means gift of gab for Flood. See, when people say gift of gab, that means you're using your ability to speak for nefarious reasons. I'm sure Mr. Flood here has always used his ability to communicate to bless the masses and educate and inform.
As I've gotten older, that's what we'll say. That's what we'll say as I've gotten older.
All right, Flood, I'm gonna let you go, man. You done hit an hour on the butt. Hey, man, I want to thank everybody for coming on. Make sure y'all hit Flood's Cash App up if you're so inclined. If the spirit moves you, you're not forced to. We're not locking the doors like Marvin Sapp or anything like that. But if you're so moved to make a donation to a man who has given us an hour of knowledge, fun, and entertainment,
and I give it to you like everybody says that I look like him, so I give it to y'all like here.
Oh, is that TD Jakes? Who is that?
Go ahead, and if you feel like blessing the Cash App, you can get ready, and go ahead and hit that button. You'll be glad to take it. I give it to you like the big cat on the land. Let me tell you something. You see that? You got your quarters and your nickels and your dimes, and you got it on there. You hit that button on your Cash App and send the big cat some money. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to put these 17 triple E's right where the sun don't shine.
That Ernie Ladd played for the Kansas City Chiefs. See,
played for the Kansas City Chiefs, Grambling Tiger, and like I said, a blessing for me. Ernie Ladd was a mentor for me as I got older. Great man, not one of the nicest and smartest men you ever want to meet, man. So, but anyway, I'm gonna let you go, man.
Now, Flood, I'm gonna tell you this before you piss somebody out. I want you to piss somebody out before you give your top 5 HBCU all-time programs, and then you can go.
Top 5 HBCU programs.
Football program.
Grambling is always, until somebody knocks them off, Grambling is going to be at the top of the list. Oddly enough, one of the programs that people don't look at because they've kind of fallen off in recent years, Tuskegee. Tuskegee is one of the top programs in HBCU sports. For what they've been able to do, if I'm not mistaken, they're like the second winningest program or the winningest program in HBCU sports. So Tuskegee has to be in there. I'm going to put Tennessee State. Tennessee State is you can't have a top 5 without having Tennessee State in there. For what they're doing right now, what they're doing right now, what they've done over the years, Florida A&M. Florida A&M has to go there, and I know I'm gonna piss people off, but I'm speaking historically.
That's what I'm talking about. Historically,
5 programs, historically, top 5 programs for what you've done over the history of their program. And I know it seems like it's a homer move, but Southern. And I know Jackson State people, I can't believe you don't have Jackson State in there. But when you look over the history of these programs, what they've done in a long term for decades and decades, I think you have to put Southern in there as the number, at least in the top 5. Some might want to argue Jackson State. I'm sure they could. No disrespect to Jackson State, but I would say Southern if you really want to evaluate the history of the programs. Then I would say Southern. Yeah, I would say Southern number 5.
I appreciate your honesty, and surely I'm sure you pissed somebody off because you left out the entire MEAC and Jackson State. So they can.
Yeah, FAMU is MEAC and.
Okay. All right.
But there's really no MEAC program over the years that you could put in as a top 5 overall program that has done it and sustained it for years. There's no MEAC program that's left. Even with Howard and Hampton, they haven't done it. I'll piss some people off. Howard should really be ashamed of themselves. They should be dominating HBCU sports with the endowment, with the ability to raise money and everything they have going for them. They should be dominating, but I won't get into that. I'm gonna let you go. That's a whole nother hour show right there.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna get out of here with you. Hey, much love, everybody. It's been Rocky and Flood, and you got to come back on before the season starts to give me some predictions.
I definitely will, brother. I definitely will. Appreciate you.
Much love, and I'm out.
All right.